This video exists because my framework had to change. And I wanted to explain why before I present the seven pillars again, because they definitely not the same. And it's not because the seven pillars failed. It's because I tested them. I was testing them all this time. And what you're seeing now is not a rebrand and it's definitely not confusion. It's what happens when a framework is applied to real world systems instead of staying theoretical. Power doesn't operate on one level. And once I understood that fully, European imperialist white supremacist ideology framework had to evolve along with that. So the framework begins as just a diagnostic lens, a way to recognize a specific civilizational system and its behavioral patterns. At that stage, the goal was just clarity, identifying language, justification, and moral position used to sustain dominance. And that worked. It was just too narrow. Because recognizing a system is not the same as understanding how it defends itself, adapts, and survives. Once I started applying the framework to real world systems, institutions, alliances, policy behavior, something became obvious. The ideology behaved very different depending on the context. When it was speaking, it used one set of tools. And when it was governing, it used another set of tools. And when you put the system under pressure, it shifted again. A single layer framework couldn't explain all of that without flattening reality. That's when I realized I wasn't looking at inconsistency. I was looking at layers of a system. So the framework became layered, not expanded, layered. So the linguistic side of it focuses on language behavior, how power explains itself, how it deflects criticism, and maintains moral legitimacy. And the system focuses on structural behavior, how power enforces itself through policy alliances, purity, logic, and hierarchy. One layer tells you what the system is saying, while the other layer tells you what the system is doing. Without both, analysis becomes symbolic or incomplete. Once structure became its own layer, another pattern emerged. Structural power doesn't fail randomly, it fails in repeatable categories. Treaties break the same way, alliances fracture the same way, moral authority is claimed the same way, and security is justified the same way. The pillars don't come from ideology, they come from repetition. The pillars exist because the system keeps exposing the same fault lines. If a framework stays static while a system adapts, the framework becomes a decoration. So then, my framework changed because the system revealed deeper mechanics once it was pressured. That's not instability, ladies and gentlemen. That is me being responsive, and the system and has to be the framework has to be responsive to the system. So now the framework is a layered diagnostic framework. It identifies ideological language, maps structural behavior, and explains dominance systems persist even explain why dominant systems persist even when individuals change. Over time, you notice no matter what president they put in, the ideology remains the same. No matter who they put in power, the goal is still the same. They overthrow their own supremacy just to put another supremacist in charge of the agenda. So it's not about villains, it's about structures that outlive people. Hmm. And as long as those structures adapt, my framework will continue to refine, not to chase relevancy, but to maintain accuracy. Thank you. And I will drop the 7 pillars, the new updated 7 pillars soon. I didn't drop and explain the other ones because it shifted. So much changed. I've got 7 pillars. I've got the counter pillars. I've got the linguistic 7 pillars, and I got to work on the 7 pillars for those. And that's going to close the entire framework. So I got a lot of work this year. It's going to be a busy year. Thank you for your time. I will be dropping updates on this, though, as it goes along.